Now, the 20% tariff imposed by the U.S. on Philippine exports starting August 1st isn't just a trade penalty. It's a wake-up call, a direct hit to our export-led growth strategy, and a stark reminder of how exposed we are to geopolitical shocks. Trade negotiators are now heading to Washington, but the broader question many are asking is whether the Philippines needs a more resilient long-term trade strategy. Joining us now is Joseph Buruganan, head of Trade Justice Pilipinas, an advocacy network focused on strengthening the Philippines' trade policy framework through a more inclusive and sustainable approach. He's also the co-director of Focus on the Global South. Hi, Joseph, and thank you for being here with us this morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for the
Okay.
invitation.
All right, so Joseph, we'll get straight to it. The U.S. is imposing a 20% tariff on Philippine exports starting August 1st. At face value, this looks like a regular trade issue, but you're calling it political coercion. In your view, Joseph, what makes this tariff so different from a typical economic dispute?
Well, Mikey, we definitely do not see this as a simple trade issue, but this is indicative of a much deeper issue. The current geopolitical situation has been described as a, quote, great power rivalry and the weaponization of interdependence. To really expound on your question, we have to ask ourselves what constitutes a trade issue nowadays? Because the nature of global trade has also shifted from a much simpler discussion before of tariffs, market access, export imports, to now fragmented production networks, global value chains, and trade not simply in goods but tasks. So trade is not so simple anymore. No? Second, if we go by the letter itself of Trump to President Marcos, it is clear that he is using tariffs as a weapon to coerce countries into capitulating to his avowed agenda of bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. It's also clear in the letter that the U.S. views the trade deficit it has with the Philippines as both an economic and national security threat. And if you look at it, if you look at what was imposed on the Philippines, but not just Philippines, so not just countries with trade deficits, but also countries where the U.S. has a trade surplus, surprisingly. For example, like Brazil, no? There, it's clear that this is not simply about trade. It's about advancing not even the U.S. strategic interest, but Trump's own, I would say, distorted notion of America's power and his very personal brand of transactional politics. No, it's also interesting to point out that many of the countries that were imposed with so-called reciprocal tariffs, the U.S. has existing free trade agreements. So to answer your question, no, it's not a simple trade issue, nor is it an economic dispute. On one level, it's one powerful state bullying a smaller, less powerful one. But more than that, it is indicative of a much deeper problem, as I said, hounding our global trading system and exposing the deep flaws of an export-dependent development strategy that leaves our economy at the mercy of global markets and the political whims of leaders like.
Yeah, it's not just us. It's exposing the flaws in the global trading system. Trump's goal is really to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, and that's what he's doing. And when you look at this trade thing, it's not a negotiation. He's issuing an ultimatum, and the U.S. is a superpower. So, Joseph, what leverage do you think we have here?
We do have a bit of a leverage in the sense that we have products that the U.S. needs. So if you look at I mean, it's not in the letter, but in the Liberation Day announcement, there was a separate, I think, executive order that exempted products like semiconductors and raw materials. Why were these products exempted? Because the U.S. needs this product. And because we have these products, I think that is a leverage that we can use in the sense that the U.S. is really vulnerable, no? But in reality, we're talking with a big superpower, and I think the way that the letter was written, as I said, it's a coercive language. It's really not a negotiation, but it's really trying to impose. It's a do this or else kind of a tone, no? And with that, I think, and if you look at the reactions from the Philippine government, they're scrambling, I would say, to really try to pull the tariff rates down. But I think it's it has to be, the negotiations has to be informed not just with the objective of bringing the tariffs down, but a deep look into what hounds also our domestic industries and our export
Yeah.
sector.
Our base case scenario was 10%. Our worst case scenario was 17, but it's a little bit higher than that. Joseph, let's talk about our current development model. For years, the Philippines has leaned, talking about our export strategy, the Philippines has leaned on garments, electronics, and food, mostly low-value segments in global value chains. What does this tariff reveal about that model and the structural weaknesses within it?
Mikey, we think this moment is actually an opportunity to rethink our trade and development strategy. And as I said, this requires a hard look at the nature of our export products and questions like, have we been able to expand and diversify the products and also markets for these products? Or have they remained limited to a few sectors and a few countries? We also need to examine the export dependent strategy in the context of global value chains and what roles does Philippine-based companies play in these chains. Now, how have these sectors contributed to overall economic development? Who has actually benefited from these exports? And are there possibilities for us to move up the value chain, or are we forever confined to our role as exporter of raw materials or semi-processed inputs?
Mm-hmm.
Export-led growth, especially in its traditional low-cost, labor-intensive form, no longer guarantees resilience, we feel. In fact,
Yeah.
it increasingly exposes us to risk. So in short, the global environment that enabled export-led growth, we feel, is vanishing. And the alternative is a more balanced and diversified development strategy. We must wean ourselves of overdependence on exports and build stronger foundations in our domestic economy.
Mm-hmm. And Joseph, our economic team is going to be headed to Washington to try to negotiate better terms. Do you believe that the Philippines can convince Trump to give us a better tariff rates?
I think that's the wrong agenda. I don't. I think that to limit that negotiating agenda to bringing down the tariffs is not a good way to go, because there are fears from many sectors. Particularly, we've heard from agricultural stakeholders, farmers, fishers. They fear that as the Philippines negotiates, it will negotiate away protection for the agricultural sector. And as I said, I don't see the tariffs moving to. I mean, previously the Philippine government was eyeing, zero tariffs. I don't see that. We don't see that happening. If at all, I think, the if at all, if it can be reduced at all, maybe going back to the 17% liberation day tariffs. But I don't know. Things are a bit volatile, Mikey, and Trump, the policies of Trump are also on and off, right? It depends on how their own domestic pressures, the domestic pressures affect their decision making. And there are indications, for example, that the first wave of tariff increases have already could result to higher prices and pushing up inflation. So we don't know. We don't know if
Yeah.
those domestic pressures would actually be the ones to force the Trump administration to reconsider. But from the purview of the Philippine negotiators, we hope that they are not, in order to bring those tariffs down, that they won't negotiate away some of the needed protection for agriculture and small industries.
So much chaos and uncertainty, Joseph. There's also talk of pursuing a Philippine-U.S. trade agreement to avoid future shocks. But from your lens, would this actually protect us?
Well, our position is that in this time of chaos and uncertainty, one needs to have more flexibility and have more room to maneuver rather than being restricted by obligations imposed under trade agreements. That, by Trump's unilateral actions will not be followed anyway. As one Canadian economist put it, free trade agreements now are not worth the paper that they are written on. No? Furthermore, Mikey, we're also concerned that if we enter, so this is not just about market access anymore, these new agreements, and there are new elements of the trade agenda, particularly digital trade, for example. where the developments there are happening at so much fast pace, and governments, particularly in developing countries like the Philippines, are finding it hard to put in place the needed regulatory environment to ensure that one, benefits are shared, rights are protected, and broader interests are served beyond the interests of the big TNCs. So in this context, it's better to develop the necessary regulatory mechanisms first, we think, rather than pursuing these trade negotiations, so as not to be swept under the uh, for-profit corporate agenda.
Yeah. Joseph, what are the sectors that you see are already under immense stress? I mean, we've got a lot. We've got electronics, we've got semiconductors, but I mean, let's talk about the garments and the agri-exports. What do you think are the most vulnerable sectors right now?
Well, we've heard, for example, the concerns of small food processors, and they feel that the 20% tariffs would make their exports more expensive and less competitive, and would stifle demand in the US, which means that with lesser demand, that they would have to adjust their domestic production, which then could lead to layoffs. So while if you talk about, our particular concern is really the micro, small, medium enterprises, MSMEs, while not a lot of them, we believe, are directly doing exports, they are linked to those companies doing exports through the value chain. And
Yeah.
so the disruptions could affect them as well, no? So, and then of course, we've also been hearing concerns from farmers, from the agricultural sector, and their concern is that that the protection for the tariffs, the tariff rates now, and the quotas might be affected, no, which means that in order to negotiate the US tariffs down, the that they would agree to raising of this import quotas, which would mean stiffer competition
Yeah.
against lower
Joseph,
price US
these
imports.
disruptions really show that we need stronger domestic safety nets. What message would you like to give to our policymakers, to our trade unions, to help us weather these shocks, especially the MSMEs?
Well, I think, yeah, as you said, we need stronger protection for MSMEs. We need there's a lot of studies that show that even if they're engaged in exports, the duration that they are, the trade relationships that they have, they cannot maintain them. So they are not able to sustain these trade relationships. So I think we need to support MSMEs. We need targeted support for them. But also we need to pivot away from. We need pivot towards regional trade and domestic demand. It's also important to have a robust public employment program, one that guarantees jobs and paid training for displaced workers, and provide wage subsidies for MSMEs that, as I said, that are viable but need temporary support.
Okay, wage subsidies, is there an amount on that? What are you pushing for, Joseph?
Well, I mean, the current discussions on wages, for example, is the 200 peso wage increase, right? But even that was that agenda did not push through, no. So I think that we need to look at how wage has stagnated in the Philippines as against productivity. So we have to have a bigger picture, and but we need to really study some more, a deeper study on MSMEs and the needs, and what do they need in order for them to survive current climate.
As you push for wage subsidies, Joseph, is there an amount that you have that you think would be fair at this juncture?
We don't have the numbers at the moment, Mikey, but I can get back to you, and I consult with our labor experts.
All right. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Joseph Puruganan, the head of the Trade Justice of the Philippines, co-convener. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.